Consider what it's like to fly on an airplane. As much as we do it and seek to normalize it, it never ceases to be an extreme situation. There's an extraordinary degree of trust and cooperation required to make flying on a commercial airliner a normal experience. You are putting your very life, and perhaps the lives of your children, into the hands of two pilots you have never met. The pilots themselves are entirely dependent upon the competence of the mechanics who service the plane, and on the moment-to-moment attention of air traffic controllers, half of whom are probably checking Instagram on their phones. For flying on an airplane to be remotely okay, you have to assume quite a lot about the world, and about the competence of other people, and about the incentives that govern their behavior, and about the redundancy of systems put in place to ensure that everything goes according to plan. If you look too closely at this situation, you can begin to think, what the fuck am I doing? Right? This is crazy. I'm going to get into this tube filled with explosive liquids and gases and obediently sit side by side with hundreds of other people and let some frat boys and sorority girls who are probably out partying last night take me up to 35,000 feet and keep me there for hours over ground or water where there may be no safe place to land for thousands of miles. And if the poorly paid union workers maintaining this plane didn't do their job, something might break loose, and we could all find ourselves suddenly hurtling toward the earth. And we're running this risk alongside thousands of other planes, flown by other all-too-human pilots, risking the lives of thousands upon thousands of other helpless people, and no one has a fucking parachute? This is bonkers. And of course, occasionally, our worst fears are realized. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, millions of people notice. Occasionally planes crash due to mechanical failures or pilot error or extreme weather or bird strikes or bombs placed by terrorists or even suicidal hijackers or pilots themselves who have deliberately crashed their planes and murdered everyone on board. As scary as this is, these things almost never happen because most people are not eager to die. And we have systems in place to make flying very safe. Is it as safe as it could possibly be? Absolutely not. A plane ticket could cost $1 million. And for that price, I am sure an airline could provide even more safety. But given economic reality and our general need or even just desire to travel to places we can't easily reach by walking or driving, we have a system that most people judge to be good enough. Now, good enough just means that most of us are willing to fly. Most of us can get on a plane without worrying that we might die in a ball of fire at any moment. It does not mean that if you do some digging, you won't find evidence of human stupidity and greed creating risk that shouldn't exist and can seem worth worrying about. It does not mean that things couldn't be better. It does not mean things shouldn't be better. It does not mean that the Boeing 737 MAX fiasco wasn't a real fiasco. It does not mean that the person who is blogging at this moment about the unacceptable rate of near misses at our most crowded airports is wrong. And occasionally you do hear about something that really should freak you out. I remember years ago, probably 20 years ago, there was a report, I think on 60 Minutes, about there being a thriving black market in counterfeit airplane parts. And people were making cheap and defective parts for airplane engines, and these were finding their way into commercial airliners. This made me want to kill somebody. How on earth could that be happening? It's totally intolerable. But what was I going to do about it? Was I going to devote my life to solving this problem? No. And I was going to continue to fly because there was no real alternative. And in fact, I just checked, and this is still a problem. Right? As recently as fucking yesterday, United Airlines reported finding bogus parts in some of its engines. I absolutely see how someone could obsess on this and decide that flying just isn't worth the risk. But the truth is, flying has been remarkably safe for as long as I've been alive. And though it is amazing to see that this problem still exists, the truth is that I more or less trust that people much closer to this problem than I am will eventually do something about it. The pilots who themselves don't want to die will do something about it. The regulators who also have to fly will do something about it. The airline executives, who don't want to be dragged before Congress and told that they have blood on their hands, will do something about it. Generally speaking, we can rely on most people most of the time to not be homicidal or suicidal assholes. And the point is, we must rely on that in order to live anything like normal lives.